We like to call it the Supernatural Hour. And now, our host.
Tonight we are back with everybody. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about some of our investigations that we have had recently. Anyways, so let's get caught up a little bit on where we are at and what's been going on.
I think Deanne's done some paranormal investigations because that's what we do. Residentials that we haven't talked about.
We have done a lot of really cool residentials. I think the investigation, it seems like the ones lately have been some of the cooler ones we've done, and I don't know if that's because we've got more experience. I don't know if they're just cooler. I'll start with one, and I don't think any of you were at this one at the chiropractic office. I think this is the first business that we've done, or at least one of the few businesses that we've done. So I was a little leery, made sure that the gal made sure that the owner knew. And he did. He was aware. Everything was cool. I'll keep it kind of short because I can get wordy like Castle. And it was kind of cool. We determined that there were two spirits in there. We were able to get them crossed over. The one of the two did not want to cross over at first, but we got her crossed over eventually.
So would you say they didn't want to be aligned with
yes.
the
Oh, you're funny. Lurch is a comedian.
Because it's a chiropractor.
You go in there to get your alignment done.
Is it okay if I mute him?
No.
Again?
No. Mute yourself, fool.
No, but it's kind of tricky though, because usually we'll go into a residential and we'll cleanse if there's some issues. And there were some issues here with some type 3 spirits, but where it's a public building, we just didn't feel like we could cleanse it because you never know the first person that comes in the door the next day, who knows what they're going to be bringing. So we decided not to cleanse it, but we got pretty much the issue taken care of, and the gal contacted us back and said that they're not having any more activity. So that was kind of cool. We did one I think this was my favorite one. We did one in Eden, which is quite a bit further north from here.
Yeah, I've been to that same home in Eden with you, and it's like...
It was a repeat.
I thought I was going to Idaho. By the time we got there, it was pretty far north.
Yeah, it's pretty far north, but the family's really nice.
Super nice family.
Very nice family. And it's interesting because they have... The woman's father has Alzheimer's, and he's in kind of a father-in-law apartment in the basement.
It's a beautiful house. It's like a 3-story house.
It's like 5 stories, it feels like, with all the stairs.
It might even be 4 stories. But yeah, so basically basement story is where Grandpa is.
Right, and it's a nice little apartment set up. And the first time we were there, we didn't go in that room. We left Grandpa's apartment alone, and there were some issues, and we got him taken care of. We got a portal closed. So this time when we went back, we asked if we could go into Grandpa's apartment, and she said, yeah, that'd be fine. So we went in there, and he had a few things in the window, and we determined that one of the items was a bayonet, and it had an attachment to it. And we were able to...
Back in the second Great War.
Exactly. We were able to cleanse that and get rid of that. And it's funny because they were talking about, this activity's really picked up in the last 2 weeks. And they have an 18-year-old son, and the activity was pretty heavy in his bedroom. So we were up in his bedroom doing some EVPs, trying to get some activity on the K2 meters. And we're up in this room for about 10 minutes. And the only issue I have with this cute little family is they like to have half the neighborhood there.
Yes,
so there were probably 12 people in this room.
God.
And all of a sudden, this 18-year-old boy goes, there's something I need to tell you, and you guys are going to be mad. So I said, okay, what's up? You got to let us know what's going on. And he says, well, I've been playing with the Ouija board. And I said, okay.
Well, there's my phone.
I said, when did this happen? He says, well, it's been about 2 weeks. And he says that they'd been communicating with someone, and it was all innocent. And we had to put kind of the fear of the Ouija boards in them. And I asked the mom, I said, is this about when the activity started in your home? And she said, yeah. Yep. And I was like, ding, 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 ding. And I put enough fear into this group of teenagers in this room that there was an 11 or 12-year-old that followed me around for the next half hour, scared out of her bejabers, asking me all sorts of questions about this and that. And I thought, well, good, I'm glad you're scared, because Ouija boards are nasty, folks.
When they stopped selling them in the board game aisle at Toys R Us, it's just ridiculous. It's like they don't even know what they're marketing.
My little Ouija board.
Yeah, right?
Yep. I mean, you can buy, pink ones on Amazon.
One, exactly. You can find a Barbie Ouija board.
So we got it taken care of there, and they were very grateful to us. That was an interesting and need I say fun? I mean, they're fun. I think they're fun. I love the residential investigations because you really feel like you're in there helping someone and alleviating some questions and fears, and that was a fun one. So.
And what other ones have you done? You've had a couple, haven't you? Besides
we've
that,
had a couple that we've set up, but they've fallen through because of illness. We've got one that's going to be coming up probably the end of next week or early the week after. But as far as anything interesting, those are going to be the interesting ones. But we did do the grist mill as a group.
Which I was about to get into. Let's talk about the grist mill. We did a Benson Grist Mill investigation. So let's do this. Let's go around the table and talk about Benson Grist Mill because I know none of us investigated together. We all investigated separately. So let's see what everybody's experience was.
Let's start with Peaches.
Peaches, tell us about your Benson Grist Mill experience.
What did you experience there? How was your experience there this last Saturday?
I was not there.
I know.
Every party's got a pooper.
Though we did go and spend about 3.5 hours at someone's house today.
Yes.
Because of something that happened at Benson Grist Mill.
Yeah, but I wasn't there.
Well, let's do this, though. Can we talk about the 3 hours you guys spent at somebody's house? Because that sounds like an interesting story that none of us know.
That's a side story. Why don't you finish your Benson Grist Mill first?
Fantastic.
Sidetracker.
You can finish your
let's
lollipop there.
So, Benson Grist Mill. So, what we did is we split up into different groups. We just it was a free-for-all, essentially. And my group, we went immediately to the very top floor of the big mill. And when I got there, I reached the very top floor and I looked around and said, this is bullshit, 'cause it was like 5,000 degrees up there.
Seriously.
So, we immediately moved down to the next floor down, which was about 15 degrees cooler, and started doing our thing there. What was interesting is that we got talking in the mill. We heard something, so almost like a marble knocked off a table.
And I was there with you when this happened.
And we did everything we could think of to debunk it. Who did we send over to debunk it?
It was Calton.
It was Calton. He went over there and he was, looking for things on the floor, dropping things, trying to figure out what made the sound, and we couldn't.
Yeah, I think we had him drop like 5 and there's not a whole lot of stuff on the floor.
No, there's not.
And, I think he threw 3 or 4 things on the floor and it was like, nope, that's not it. I mean, we could not recreate that noise.
Right, and it was loud, and it was right next to us, essentially. And then in the same time period, we also heard some footsteps. It sounded like somebody was walking around on the east end of the floor we were on, and we went and checked that out, and there was nobody up there with us at all. But, I mean, is it like loud footsteps?
We heard a laugh.
We did hear a laugh.
And then I and one other person heard a woman's voice, and we'll bring that back around in a minute. I'll talk about that again.
And so that was kind of my experience in the big mill. Now, we ended up going, later in the night, I ended up going with a group down to the loom room. I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but it just did. the loom room.
The weaving
Come with me, everybody. We're going to the loom room.
That sounds like a name for a children's show.
Yeah.
Welcome to the loom room. Gonna have lots of fun today.
Stay from Lurch. She'll touch you inappropriately. We've already established that.
You gotta talk like this.
I'll be
going down to
kids.
the loom room.
I'm gonna start a show called the Loom Room.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay, so
moving right along.
After I got down to the weaving cabin,
Are you Lamb Chop? Because that's what you sound like.
Welcome to the loom room.
The movie Lamb Chop's Play Along.
so as in the weaving cabin,
This is the song that never ends.
and we were in there doing some things, and I looked out through the open doorway, and there's almost like a little outhouse, just like across the other side of the
Field.
the compound or
That's
field.
exactly what it is. There's
Is
an
it?
outhouse by the smaller mill.
So as I was looking out there, I saw a dark figure of a person walk to and behind the outhouse, and I kept watching, and I said, was that somebody walking out there? Because it just something about it didn't seem right. And so everyone's like, yeah, I think somebody went walking out there. So I never took my eyes off of it, but I actually walked out and walked across the field, compound, whatever you want to call it, to the outhouse and looked behind it, and there's nobody ever came out, and there's nowhere to go behind there. And so I'm 98% sure that I actually saw a shadow figure walk behind this outhouse and basically disappear. So those were kind of my big experiences for the night at Benson Grist Mill. That and the equipment was acting really weird.
Yes.
The Ghost Meter Pros are usually really reliable, and they were just kind of in total full freak out mode all night long.
And that's what was frustrating me,
All
was
night long.
knowing that the equipment was fluctuating like that was really making me angry and frustrated, because it's like I want to know I want to have like a constant base reading, and then if something's fluctuating it, I want it to be without a shadow of a doubt, knowing that it's
right.
Paranormal.
Your equipment's
Exactly.
consistent. So when it's
it's always a good thing to have consistent equipment.
Although
exactly.
Charlie was following me around all night, and so he was playing with the K2 meter I was holding all night. And Charlie is a spirit that lives there. He's probably about 5'10", 5'11", late 50s, salt and pepper hair, mustache, handlebar mustache, and there's a photo of him in one of the mills. And so I guess I remind him of someone that he knew.
So tell us a little bit more about your experience there, Lurch.
That was pretty much it. I've been to the grist mill a couple times before, and it was pretty low key for me most of the night. Other than seeing my K2 meter go off, Caden was there, and he'd be like, "Yeah, it is Charlie. That's following me around." That was pretty much it. I had some friends that were there, a girl that I work with and her husband, and I was mostly just kind of showing them around the different hot spots. I remember going out to the amphitheater with Beaker, and I think you had the
my entourage.
Yeah, your Echo Vox was on.
Caden was running the Echo Box on the Ghost Meter Pro.
But when we showed up, a couple F-bombs started dropping. Yeah, the flashlights. That was a good highlight for the night, too, was getting the flashlight test to work.
I think I remember that right when I first got there. Caden turned on the Echo Vox, and I heard a great big F you.
Uh-huh.
And, in fact, actually, he brought it up, and, I heard F you. I thought about something else, but that was a different investigation, so I don't want to mix them up. So, what about you, Deanne? Tell us about your Benson Grist Mill experience.
It's interesting how, Lurch said, this time was a little bit low-key. And that's how investigations are when we go to multiple locations. It's like sometimes it's hot and jumping. And it can be hot and jumping for one person, and another person could be like, yeah, I got nothing. And the last couple times I've gone to the grist mill have been But this time I went, probably my favorite time at the grist mill. And I went this time, I'll tell people on investigations, don't get so engrossed in your equipment that you don't look around, because you're going to miss orbs, you're going to miss shadows, you're going to miss, all these visual things. And then I find myself staring at my equipment and missing visual things. And so I thought, what, this time I'm going to do an experiment, and I'm not going to look at my equipment. I took a few things just, in case, but I thought I'm just going to look. And so I was with Castle when with the pebble and the laugh and the footsteps, but a little later, after that, I went into the weaving cabin with Michelle and her son, Calton.
It's the loom room.
And it's interesting because she had some dowsing rods, and I've been places where people have used the dowsing rods, but I've never really paid attention.
Are we playing Jeopardy?
Are we boring you, Brandy?
Brandy's bored.
I'm sorry if we're not exciting. Not interesting.
I left her fidget spinner at home.
Anyway, so she was saying, every time you're asking a question, these rods are moving, and I couldn't see because it's dark. So I went over and I was standing in front of her, and I turned my flashlight on so I could see her dowsing rods. And I'm facing a mirror, and if you have listened to the podcast at all, you know that freaks me out. But it was dark, and I was okay with it. And so we were asking questions, and the dowsing rods were moving, and I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. And then I glanced up because I was trying to think of another question to ask, and I saw someone walk behind me. And it was definitely a person. You could see a head, you could see shoulders. It was kind of a grayish white, and it had a definite gait. When people walk, there's a little bit of a bounce.
No, when you say definitely a person, do you mean like a person, or like a spirit person?
Well, wait for it.
And this is,
when you say definitely a person, my first thought is it's a person. You've debunked it.
It was definitely a human form.
How about personage? It was definitely a personage.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, it had a head, it had shoulders, it had a human gait like walking. And
did it have knees and toes?
It did.
It had head, shoulders, knees and toes? Okay.
Eyes, ears, mouth,
and
nose.
Okay.
I did not see the eyes, ears, mouth, and nose.
Just making sure.
And I asked Kelton, I said, did you just walk behind me? And I was 100% ready for him to say, yeah, that was me. And he said, no. And I said, well, is there anybody else in here with us? He goes, no, it's just the three of us. And I said, well, and he showed me, he said I walked, but he walked to the side of me, not behind me. I said, well, walk behind me. So he did, and he was a black shadow, not a grayish white shadow. And I said, well, because there was a window right behind me, I said, well, go out and run around, close to the window, far away from the window. And he did, and we couldn't see anything at all. And so then I thought, well, there's cars, because there's a pretty main road fairly close. And so I thought, well, maybe it was a car. So I stood for a minute and waited, and a few cars went by, but the lights went fast, and they were rectangular shape with like a chunk cut out of it. And it's like, no, that wasn't it either. So we could not recreate this, so I'm calling it a shadow figure, or a full-body apparition, for lack of a better term. So that was pretty cool. So then I went out, and I was trying to find Caden, because earlier before it even got dark, we went to the basement of the mill, because he was feeling something down there. Dawn and I went down there with him, and I said, when you come back, I said, I want to come with you, because I want to know what's going on down here. So I went to go find him, because we hadn't gone down there yet, and I ran into him and Tim and their entourage, and Tim said, there's something in this cabin, a spirit, and she wants to talk to you. And I'm actually going to let him tell that story.
Oh, that's right. I remember that story, too.
The spirit talked to you, not me.
Well, I can finish. I can do the end part, but you need to do the build up to it. You got to do this right.
There was a spirit that wanted to talk to Deanne.
Oh, for heaven's sakes!
my favorite part about Tim realizing that he's doing fat breathing in the mic is that now he talks. His mic's like 5 feet away, and so like for the 30 seconds Tim talks, he like sounds like he's down a hallway.
No, I know it's far away. I'm like yelling at it on purpose. It's for comedic effect. Thank you, Lurch. Lurch is playing footsies with me.
I'm not.
Not
I am
really.
not.
Not really.
No.
I just wanted to say.
You're both barefoot.
Thanks, Lurch. Let's talk about it.
I want to see it.
Okay. So.
Wait, what are you talking about?
Me going down
Okay.
to the cat. That was gross.
What?
I need foot sanitizer now. So there's a cabin next to the big barn that has an angry girl in it that I think we talked about briefly. She's like pissed off at the world because her parents, according to her, sold her into slavery. What actually happened is her parents traded her to a polygamous family for some land. And she's like pissed off at her parents and doesn't want to talk to anybody. She's like just wants everybody to leave her alone. But it was weird because I got this overwhelming feeling that out of everybody there, she wanted to talk to just Deanne.
Just me.
I couldn't make out
cool?
why. I couldn't tell why. Like I was, it was beyond me. Why would anyone want to talk to just Deanne? I'm just kidding.
The bomb.
I had this overwhelming sense that the spirit wanted to talk to you, and Caden said it was because that you reminded her of her sister. So we found you later on, and I told you, I'm like, yeah, the spirit wants to talk to you, and that's all I know of it.
Right. So we went down there, and we're talking to the spirit, and she was really mad because people were coming into her house.
How'd you get down? Because you said you went down there. How'd you get down?
Walked.
Are you mute? You should mute him.
No.
No, I'm not muted.
We walked casually down to and this is a cabin that when we went on one of Chungus hunts, Don and I were kind of stationed there to help people as they came through. So we sat in this cabin for, probably 3 or 4 hours.
It was an hour before you had to go home because it was 11 o'clock at night, and you wanted to hit the early bird special at Denny's on the way home.
We're old. We get tired. So we went into this cabin. I'm like, I've spent hours in this cabin talking to whatever will talk to me. So I went in, and she said that she wanted to talk to me because I reminded her of her sister. She also wanted to talk to me because she said that I was the one in charge and that I had the power, just so you know, Castle.
So she's a confused spirit.
She doesn't know any better.
Anyway, she wanted people to stop coming into her house. And so I said, I can get our group to not come in here, but I said, this is a public area. I said, I can't have everybody stop coming in here. And then she got mad at me because she said I was the one with the power. Anyway, long story short, we ended up crossing her.
Yeah, in fact, I actually...
That'll teach her a thing or two. You don't want us to come in your house? Fine.
Get
Go
out.
to the other side.
No, in fact,
ya.
Deanne actually contacted me and asked me to come over and see what we could do to help.
Well, she said I had the magic, and I thought, okay. So
basically we went over there, and between all of us, we were able to convince her that she needed to cross, because she was reluctant to cross because she was waiting for her husband and somebody else, and she just wasn't ready to cross until she figured those things out. And
That's what she told Brandy last time we were there.
Yeah, so what we ended up doing is we ended up convincing her that she needed to cross and that she'd be able to find her husband if he wasn't already on the other side waiting for her. So after that, she ended up crossing. So Tim, tell us your Benson Grist Mill story, including your Kevin Hicks story that you told us before we started recording. Tell us of your entourage and what it is that you guys did, Tim.
I had an entourage.
What'd you do?
We investigated the mill.
Good story. Hey, thanks.
I'm just today.
That's like a Deanne story.
Today I'll be playing the role of Deanne. So, like I said, we started out in that cabin. The girl kicked us out. It was funny because what I didn't mention is when we were leaving the cabin, I turned around. Everyone walked out. I turned around to go get my tape recorder or my digital recorder because I left it on the table.
Tim's over there rocking the cassette tapes.
I got my little tiny cassette tapes.
Flip to side B.
It's on. I'm using 8-track.
That's right. I got the reel-to-reel with a external microphone.
All right. I got the boom mic hanging out here. Does anyone want to talk to me? Talking to the end of the thing on my stick. So as I turned around to pick up my recorder, the spirit actually shut the door of the cabin on me.
Nice.
I turned back around and the door was shut on me as I was trying to leave. And I'm like, all right then. So we ended up down in the amphitheater and Caden was performing for the masses. No, we had the flashlight session going on. We were getting some pretty good responses.
Yeah, we were.
It took a little bit to get warmed up, but it started out as a small group. It was just myself, Caden, a guy I work with, and his girlfriend, and then the Finleys were with us. And then it just kind of grew from there.
Laura and Kevin Hicks showed up.
Yeah,
and
the Hicks showed up, and Aaron Oliverson showed up. That's their name.
A bunch of Hicks showed up.
Bunch of Hicks showed up, sat down with us, and they're like, "Hey, what y'all doing?" I was like, "We's investigating."
Y'all got a plug of tobacco?
You fellas gonna talk some of them spirits?
No,
I brought some in this jug.
I got some PBR.
Everyone in Georgia's going to be mad at us
I know,
now.
right?
Yeah.
Hey, they're talking about us.
Hicks, we don't sound like that. Ma, get the kettle on.
So yeah, that's the last name. I showed up.
They were there looking
With
for
my
attractive
guests.
cousins.
Well, it was funny because we were getting pretty good responses. I'm sitting there kind of trying to tune into the spirits, and Caden's telling me that I've got a Type 2 that followed me home from the Santa Quinn investigation. He's telling Castle he had a Type 2 that followed him from the Santa Quinn investigation, which is funny because K2 meter's going off. Caden's like, "Hey, did you follow Castle here from Santa Quinn?" And just the thought that was popping in my head was no. And then the K2 meter hits yes, and Caden starts laughing. He's like, "See, yes," and I'm just kind of like, I don't think so." It was weird because the information Caden was getting was different from what I was getting, and usually kind of the information we get is the same. That night it was kind of we were getting opposite information, so I'm not exactly sure who was getting the right information, who wasn't. I do know that there was part of it where I had to remove myself from the group just because I wasn't feeling myself. And everyone was convinced that I was attacked by some demonic entity that was there, which was not the case at all. I remember everyone followed me up into the pavilion where I went. I was going up there to get my selenite. Everyone from the amphitheater followed me, and they were freaking out because I knew I left my bag of rocks there. I had no idea I had taken my phone out of my pocket and set it down. That was the only part of it I don't remember. But when Caden and Laura came up to me, Caden said that I kind of looked at him and flexed at him and tried to intimidate him. And then so Caden did his thing and tried to move energy out of me, saying I was being attacked by Type 3, which I don't feel was the case because it didn't feel like a Type 3 attack. I've been through that before, and it just, to me, it felt more like the spirits were trying to push their emotions onto me like they do, and I was trying to resist it. And it didn't work out too well for me. They eventually got through, which is part of the reason why I removed myself from the group. But from that point on, Caden told everybody that I couldn't be left alone, so I ended up with this huge entourage of people following me around all night. Before this all happened, though, it was right after Laura got there, she saw someone moving around. They were leaning up against a post, and She's like, is someone over there? And I looked, and I saw, to me, it just looked like the post. And I'm like, well, I think it's just a post. And she's like, no, it's moving. There's got to be someone over there. So I yell over in that direction, hey, is there someone there? And we get no response. So I get up and I start walking towards the post. And again, I'm like, hey, is there someone there? And still no response. So I pull my phone out, turn the flashlight on, and shine it up. And sure enough, Kevin Hicks is standing right there, freaking out at me because I'm shining my light in his eyes. I'm like, if someone walks towards you asking if you're there, say something. Like, don't just stand there and ignore him.
Oh, he's going to listen to this.
No, he won't.
Yeah, he will.
Actually, he will.
He will.
Chungo won't. I can make fun of the set list. Okay. Benson Grist Mill, make fun of Laura and Kevin Hicks. Check. I did have later on, like, I borrowed Paul Welch's dowsing rods. And this was, like, right after I had my, air quotations, attack. I don't feel like it was an attack. But I was holding the dowsing rods, and I was showing some people how they worked because they'd never seen them used before. And it's not something that we normally use on our investigations, but they're still kind of a cool tool to use. I was having them cross the rods for yes and no questions. And at one point, I'm holding them straight out, and I go, can you point someone in this, because we're kind of standing in a circle, I'm like, can you point at someone in this circle that you don't like? And that thing, like, it wasn't slow. It, like, quickly turned all the way around and pointed at me. And I'm like, okay, then I'm done with these, and I handed them back to Paul.
Yeah, I forgot Paul was there too, and we liked Paul. Paul's always fun to investigate with, but he was a little bit MIA that night. Did anybody get a chance to investigate with Paul?
Paul went. He did his own thing. He went by himself, and
well, the funny thing is when we first got there, and remember I said I was just going to go and not use any of my tools and just look, and I thought, well, I'm going to start down by the fire pit. So we went down. That's the first thing we did after we ate, and I made this big announcement to everybody. I'm going to go down here.
How did you go down?
Whispering for the recording.
Walk leisurely down to the fire pit.
They strolled on down.
Oh my gosh. There were so many freaking mosquitoes down there. We were down there for about 30 seconds. I'm like, I'm out. I'm gonna get the Nile.
Yeah, in fact, I actually went out for a little bit and realized I was going to get carried off by mosquitoes, so I did spend very little time outside. Near the very end of the night, I went out towards the schoolhouse. But, yeah.
And people were making fun of me when I first showed up. They're like, why are you in a long-sleeve T-shirt? That's right.
So he doesn't get the Zika.
That's right.
It's not really
Zika or the West Nile.
Yeah, I ended up getting like 5 mosquito bites that itched for a week.
That?
They wouldn't go away.
So you had a long-sleeve T-shirt too, Beaker?
No.
No?
No, I just had a mosquito bite right there.
Oh.
So you can still see one of them. Right
See,
there.
I actually,
like,
Oh, on you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Right there.
see, I didn't even actually get any mosquito bites, but that's because I learned from your guys' mistakes. So that was basically our Benson Grist Mill investigation. It was actually a lot of fun. So that's going to be our show for tonight. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. By the way, don't forget to check out the other awesome shows on podbash.com. So that's our episode.
You've been listening to the Supernatural Hour at AdvancedParanormal.com. The Supernatural Hour is part of the Radio Ronin network found at RadioRonin.com. Copyright by Advanced Paranormal Services.